August 12, 2000, 11:28 a.m. Seismographs in Norway detect a tremor in the Barents Sea. It registers as a 1.5 magnitude earthquake. 2 minutes and 15 seconds later, a second tremor hits. This one is massive 4.2 on the Richter scale. It releases enough energy to be felt hundreds of miles away. But these weren't earthquakes. The pride of the Russian Navy, the nuclear submarine Kursk, had just detonated from the inside out. 118 men were trapped on the ocean floor. Welcome to Shadow Works. Today we open the final file of this series. The story of a cheap chemical, a bad weld, and a government that let its sailors die rather than admit a mistake. The Kursk was an Oscar II class submarine. It was unsinkable. It had a double hull and was designed to hunt U.S. aircraft carriers. On that morning, the crew was preparing to fire a practice torpedo. A Type 65-76, nicknamed Kit, the Whale, or simply the Fat Girl. The problem wasn't the warhead. It was the fuel. To make the torpedo fast, the Soviets used High-Test Peroxide, HTP. HTP is incredibly powerful, but it is chemically unstable. If it touches rust, copper, or certain metals, it expands 5,000 times its volume in a split second. The British Navy stopped using HTP in the 1950s because it killed their sailors. The Soviets kept using it because it was cheap. At 11:28 a.m., a bad weld on the training torpedo failed. High-test peroxide leaked onto the kerosene fuel tank. The reaction was instant. Explosion 1. The blast blew off the front hatch of the torpedo tube and sent a fireball into the torpedo room. It killed the forward crew instantly. The submarine lost control and plowed into the seabed. But the worst was yet to come. The fire in the nose heated up the other torpedoes, the real warheads. 2 minutes later, they all cooked off at once. Explosion 2. This was the 4.2 seismic event. It ripped a 20-foot hole in the hull and sent a shockwave through the ship that twisted steel bulkheads like paper. Most of the crew died instantly. But in the very back of the ship, in compartment 9, 23 men survived the blast. They were in the dark. The air was running out. The water was rising. Lieutenant Captain Dmitry Kolesnikov took charge. He wrote a note in the dark. 13:15. All personnel from compartments 6, 7, and 8 moved to compartment 9. There are 23 of us here. None of us can get to the surface. For hours, they banged on the hull with hammers. SOS, SOS. British and Norwegian divers were ready to help. They could have opened the hatch. But the Russian government refused. They claimed the Kursk had collided with a NATO sub. They prioritized their secrets over their sailors. By the time the hatch was finally opened days later, the knocking had stopped. When they raised the Kursk a year later, they found Kolesnikov's note in his pocket. It proved that the men didn't die from the explosion. They died waiting to be rescued. The Kursk disaster changed the Russian Navy forever. They finally retired the HTP torpedoes. But the lesson remains. In engineering, cheap often costs the most in the end. You have now completed File 5. We have explored the skies, the stars, and the ocean floor. But the archives are never empty. Shadow Works will return. Make sure you are subscribed and your notifications are on. Until next time, stay classified.